Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to, depending on wherever you may live or however you choose to read your clock this early morning or middle of the night bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button. It takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this middle of the night or early morning bonus upload, shall we? I'm going to break this middle of the night or early morning bonus into two parts. One, terrifying experiences, and other, a look into a possible reason why these things happen where they do happen. And when I say things, I mean attacks, events, sightings, all around the paranormal. Not just Dogman, not just Bigfoot, not UFO, not ghosts, just everything.
There are three main networks that operate through and around the Earth. The first we are going to look at is the crystalline grid, which links the crystals on Earth. Where this grid intersects are the main portals, vortexes, and dimensional portals that connect the interior of the Earth and the Earth to other dimensional worlds, stars and planets in the galaxy, the solar system, and beyond. The crystalline grid maintains harmony within the Earth's plane and links portals from Earth to the stars and the universe to have harmony with our neighbors in space. Just as we, when the meridians are free and flowing, we enjoy good health within our body and with other beings. So it is with the great networks of the Earth. The ancients were aware of this, and that is why they built pyramids, temples, stone circles to align this energy with the stars and the inner Earth, and maintain the beam, so to speak, as well as the creation of dimensional portals for beings from the other worlds to travel through. These beings are from star systems, universes, and worlds, and they have all an agenda on Earth. Many of them have been here for millions of years, or actually since the history of life on Earth. The dragon people, who were part of the reptilian history on Earth, along with the snake people and lizard people, worked with crystals within the Earth to create the crystalline grid. This created life on the planet as we know it. They came to Earth from Altair, when the Earth was still only sound winds, and so they went to live inside of the Earth. Like many others in other dimensions, generally 6th and 7th, the dragon people connected the crystals around the Earth and built endless tunnels with the serpent peoples. Crystals are electromagnetic, and from the grid that was created through their incorporation, it brought out an electromagnetic energy field around the Earth that drew in moisture, and then life began to form little by little as we know it. Due to the energy that the crystal grid gave off as light, which is life, life could be created with a harmonious weather pattern, when the Earth stabilized and harmonized with the sun and the planets. This created an environment that was then sustainable for many other star people to travel to the Earth to colonize here, as they were now able to cope with living on the surface and coping with the gravitational pull. Some ETs have more of a story here than others, but now the whole world is back to resolve as we merge with the sun, central sun, and great central sun. We are all completing this circle and ready to move on beyond duality and old dramas. The energy which powers our civilizations are in these tunnels, along with huge stores of precious stones and metals. At the main junctions of the grid, we have what we may call the lying dragon vortexes or serpent vortexes. This is the portal that contains the energy and has a large guardian crystal below it. These portals are spiral vortices that rotate counterclockwise and clockwise. This is how all energy moves in the universe, and with anti-gravity from the earth to the heavens, and with gravity from the heavens to the land. The spiraling energy is serpentine energy, that is life force, just as it flows up your spine into your DNA that contains the codes of the story of creation. As the serpent rises within us, so does our DNA activate the memory of who we are, and we become our light body. We raise our frequencies to the higher dimensional worlds as Earth also raises hers to become a fifth dimensional planet. For some, this is evolving far beyond the fifth dimension. In the portals, there are doors to ancient civilizations that have moved into the light, which are now becoming clearer once again as they are making the dimensional shift. The crystalline grid, also known as the dragon lines or the ley lines, is working in all dimensions. In fact, density, you have the physical crystals and the mineral kingdom. These same minerals are found within our bodies and the universe. Thus, the network links to all the most important portals of the earth through the crystalline grid that resonates in the divine light and as a window of light and a door between the worlds, linking with the grid of light in the higher planes, therefore to create a grid in many dimensions. Pyramids, temples, standing stones, and stone circles have been built at the main portals on this grid. Pyramids, which are all over the world, not just in Mexico and Egypt, have a resonance of crystal light. Even structural pyramids are built of granite, which contains quartz. Pyramids once held harmonious resonance with the earth and the universe, their energy working in a higher octave of light, and all of those among us who have parallel world connections with them are now like pyramids of light, bringing harmony back. By becoming as clear as crystal, we have a harmonious resonance with the earth, with each other, and with the universe and the cosmos. Thus we become the crystal or pyramid holding the ray and creating a new grid of light by opening our resonance to that of the crystalline grid that also runs through us at this time on the planet. A whole new resonance of becoming anchored through us in a form of clear crystals and through the interior of the earth. As we become a transducer of energy from heaven to earth, as we unify, we marry heaven and earth within us. The grid of light is in the casual and higher mental planes around the earth, as it unites us all in our higher self, inner self. So this is the fifth and sixth dimensional. This grid is often used when meditating to connect with others who are light or whatever name you wish to give to those beings who are here in service to assist in the changing of the cycle and are placed either around the grid in different places to anchor higher energies in certain cosmic events, or through a link of meditation and in its highest state of consciousness to see and know all beings as a whole, healed and divine. Thus creating a higher level of consciousness to help all of humanity make the change that is happening regardless of whether anyone wants it to or not. Just like day follows night, it is a cyclical event, a rather grandiose one. This grid connects everyone at their higher self/inner self level, and many times they are unaware of what is happening as they work together, often during sleep or through trusting their hearts to go where they are guided in. The crystalline grid to hold the energy. The grid of light is also the place where you travel in your light body on your soul level and can move through higher dimensional gates and through stargates and different portals to accelerate your own growth, as well as for service to others and the introduction of encodings of higher octaves of light to be anchored in the Earth's plane. This is where even on a personal level you can communicate with other higher selves to resolve conflicts or difficulties, or to lend help to heal themselves, as once their higher self receives the energy, it can be downloaded to them in the lower planes. This is where you can work on what you may call inner planes. The solar grid connects the golden solar disks around the planet, which holds energy of central sun and the light codes that create life as we know it. They are also working on a frequency of us when we are unified and being the creator God/goddess of our true selves, creating heaven on earth and working with the higher dimensional aspects of oneself as a member of the Council of Light, as the sun disk is golden within our hearts, our solar being one with the central sun. These golden sun disks are still in a higher dimension, hidden from the third dimension, as long as a human being continues to see gold as a power in greed, but they are now being activated throughout the planet. Some have always been active and are united with the solar grid that brings in the golden rays, the essence of divine love, to the Earth's plane. Since September of 1997, the solar grid has been activated. From sites of Tiwanaku, ancient Lemuria, in northern Bolivia near Lake Titicaca, which anchors the sun god/goddess. This has been able to happen from the golden solar disks. One on the island of the sun in the Lake Titicaca that has been activated for years. They were fully operational in the past golden age and helped the earth to be aligned through its center to the sun, central sun, and greater central sun. At the time, everyone was in their divinity, but still in more etheric bodies. Now we are doing this again, but this time in full physical bodies, so that we can complete our sacred mission, the marriage of heaven and earth through our body, our light body. In 1995, during the October solar eclipse, the councils of light assessed the vibrations through the disks to the point where the grid linked us all over the world could be activated 2 years later. This is the case now. So the solar grid, which is a very high frequency divine energy, is now working around the earth again. We also have the crystalline grid. The ley lines, which is mentioned above, are linked with crystals, stone circles, or pyramids, like the grids of light that link our higher selves to our etheric diamonds around the earth that have been in place long before we were willing to open up to these solar grid frequencies. Of course, this is running in conjunction with the fact that we are almost completely 0 point, with no magnetism and higher frequencies into no time as we move fully into the 5th dimension and beyond. Once we had to go to a main vortex portal, for example pyramids or the Himalayas, to move to dimensionally and be activated and awakened. Today, because the grids are flowing again, the energy is charging around the entire world. Even when we're sitting in our living room, you are experiencing higher energies. Portals are vortex points of spiraling energy like chakras or acupressure points in a human being. This energy moves clockwise with the gravity and counterclockwise with anti-gravity. There are crystals within the earth that receive and transmit energy, assimilate it, and send it through the grids, as well as stone amplify and focus energy. These are aligned with our solar system, galaxy, and cosmos, often aligning with a particular star system and are electrical, magnetic, or both. Electrical vortexes are masculine energy, given emotional and physical charge and stimulation of consciousness. Magnetic vortex are feminine energy, which enhances psychic perception and the subconscious. The electromagnetic vortexes combine both energies, providing balance. There are major portals such as Machu Picchu in Peru, the pyramids of Giza in Egypt, Sedona, Arizona, United States, Stonehenge, Uluru in Australia, and so on, as well as many other major portals, as well as minor portals. Many of them are classified as chakra points of the earth, or regarding the countries in which they are located. Sometimes there are differences of opinions on this, but without considering that it is better to stay in your heart and trust what feels right to you. It is not necessary to go to any of these places, but it is often possible that you may be drawn there on a soul journey or in a dream state. These places hold incredible energy, activate and awaken those who travel to them either physically or on soul travel. This can be often the case when people are not spiritually awake, but they go there and then years later, when they are consciously wake up, they realize that going to these places had an effect on their energy field and consciousness, and that it has been part of their awakening process. Some portals are aligned to different star systems and are easy to access when you are in one of them. For example, the Mayan pyramids at Palenque are a gateway to the central sun, Alcyone. In Koba, to the Pleiadian star system at many different dimensional levels, and also a star map of this galaxy. In the pyramid at Lake Kuthraba in Queensland, a portal to Andromeda, the pyramids of Giza to Orion and Sirius, the Nazca lines to many different star systems. In the Serpentine National Park in Western Australia to the Southern Cross. So accessing these portals is very easy at the locations that are mapped out on Earth's landscape, but when you are clear enough, you will be able to travel through these stargates regardless of where you are. Most portals will call to you when the time is right. And if you honor this, you will receive an incredible shift of consciousness. There are also portals that are reopening, like the City of Light in Antarctica, and being activated for the Earth's changes, or those that are anchoring in huge energies for the changes, like Tikla in Guatemala. There are often councils of light working on these portals, as they are dimensional gates that ground personnel can access and download energy from. There are often codes that need to be activated, like the top of the Himalayas in Kashmir with the Pakistan border, and the source of the Ganges with the living library of light. These activations happen at solstice and eclipse, and at time when the energy of the greater central sun can easily shine through the portals to the Earth's plane. Often the encodings of a location will need to be linked to each other by a ground crew person traveling through the grids doing this. There are also new portals becoming very active as we are now aligned with the second sun in the galactic center, such as the Rainbow Beach in Queensland. Portals are often the light ships or motherships above them, or are portals for ships leaving from within the Earth. Then there are the tunnels of the serpent, and these can only be traversed when we are vibrating with higher octaves of light. There are doors to these tunnels in special places, such as the Andes in India, Australia. They are in a higher dimension, and one can tunnel through the earth and into the earth. There are also cities and civilizations under the earth, in certain places like Mount Shasta. These portals are often in sacred rocks or mountains, so these portals are portals to many dimensional worlds that interact with the third dimension. Some of the old portals are also now transforming their energy to other places of new energy. This is particularly true for those in the northern hemisphere, as the southern hemisphere is bringing new energies. Many of these ancient portals are being contested by beings who are still caught up in the dramas of duality of light and darkness, such as the Sinai Desert or Iran, Babylon, whereas the new energy portals operate in unity and are hidden from most. While some people are still trying to accomplish something instead of being of service, trusting, and maintaining unity, there is major reshaping and a lot of astral drama going on right now as this game of duality is in its final moments. Many of these new energy portals are not even perceived by people unless they resonate in unity with their entire being and all of creation. The living library codes that illuminate from the central sun of our divine being at the frequency level are stored in our DNA. The entire 40,000 strand codes, rather than 2 strands of human body enslaved, are also found in our bones and in the stones and crystals of the earth. The crystalline matrix of light that we are as we awaken to our divinity, and that comes from love instead of fear, makes us crystal clear. The clearer we are, the more we are able to access the full spectrum of DNA color coding to our Christ light body. We remember our multi-dimensional selves and the higher purpose of being here on earth. We open our consciousness and expand it, having inner vision, telepathic connection, awareness of other dimensions and worlds, and a clear perception of energies with which we work or towards which we are moving. Rocks and stones also hold the codes of the divine plan as we do. The earth is seeded from countless galaxies and civilizations, and all information was stored on earth and rock and bone, and we as human beings hold the key to the gateway of our own divinity. We are very incredible beings, and our genetics, when activated, is incredible. when we come from the love that we realize that we are a hologram and that we have created myriads of holograms of ourselves by experiencing the furthest extremes of our love in the human body on earth. We realize that we are from the earth, that there is no separation, and what is the earth is us. Even the changes of the earth are our changes as we become peaceful and unified in the love of the earth. Also changes to peace. Everything depends on us. Many of the rocks, and this includes mountains, rock outcrops, or hills, standing stones, are often already very active or are becoming active again as we merge into the higher dimensions and the veils begin to lift, disappear. They are gateways to a higher octave of light, cities of light, councils of light, grid of light, and dimensions.
All right, some very interesting information right there. I don't know if I totally feel or how I totally feel about the ley line and their possible involvement in cryptid sightings, encounters, paranormal, UFO, or whatnot. Maybe, just maybe, these deep underground military bases and these other structures built by the alien agenda and such happen to fall within these ley line areas. So maybe that has something to do with it. Not sure. But let's jump into some very creepy encounters.
My name's Dee, and I live in North Carolina near Charlotte. I'm 42 years old and a proud single mom of 4. I grew up on a 200-plus acre farm as a child where we grew our own fruits and vegetables, raised and killed our own pig, cattle, and chicken. I also come from a large family of hunters/fishermen. I was taught to shoot, hunt, and fish at a very early age, so I know my way about the woods and around weapons fairly well. Okay, understatement probably. I have always been able to outshoot most people, and my hunting skills are above average. I can break down my own guns and clean them, skin out and butcher a deer, hog, cow, or anything else. I know all the types of animals we have around these parts. I want you to know this so you realize what happened to me was not a case of mistaken identity. I also am half Native American Cherokee. I was raised hearing stories from elders about other things most people don't believe are real in this world. And yes, some are about Sasquatch and Dogman. I believe it was September or October of '87. I was 14 years old at the time. I was always mature for my age. I was an only child with a very sick mother at the time who died unfortunately a year after this occurred. But I always looked mature or older, and I had a boyfriend who was 16 and able to drive, although I was not allowed to, as Mama called it, car date with him. So on this particular evening, I snuck out of the house to meet him and 2 other friends, my friend Jay and her boyfriend, at around midnight. I've changed everyone's real names to tell my experience, as I am not in contact with these people anymore. I remember the moon was pretty full on this evening because of how it illuminated Jay's boyfriend's dirt road when my boyfriend parked his '69 Camaro on it. My boyfriend's car was really loud, so he had to park it at the beginning of the dirt road so we wouldn't wake Jay's boyfriend's parents, then walk about a mile down the dirt road to reach Jay's boyfriend's house to let him know that we were here. We had already picked Jay, so my boyfriend left Jay and I in the car while he walked the mile to the house. My boyfriend wasn't gone long, maybe 10 minutes, and Jay was relaying to me all the school gossip as we listened to the radio. When I started to smell this god-awful stench, I never forget the horrendous smell. It smelled of rotting meat once maggots have set in, a musky, pungent odor of wet dog and blood. Yeah, you could literally smell the metallic, iron-like smell of blood. I knew it well from slaughtering our own animals. Jay is still jabbering away, she's quite the talker, when I interrupted, asking her, "Do you smell that?" At first she said, "Smell what?" And I was like, "You don't smell that awful stink?" She took a good whiff and said, "Ooh, yeah, I do." I said, "I don't know, but I don't remember smelling it when we first pulled in." It was so bad we had to pull the fronts of our shirts to cover our nose and mouth. Jay was like, "I guess the scent just doesn't reach us off the bat." I don't know how, but figured she might be right. Jay went on talking, and not even 5 minutes later, there was a nudge of the car like someone gently rocked the rear end. Jay shut up immediately when that happened. Her eyes grew wide as she asked, "What was that?" My heart started beating fast when I said, "I don't know." Then I smiled and whispered, "I bet you it's the guys trying to scare us." It had now been long enough for the guys to have hurried back to us, and they were always pulling pranks like that. We looked out of the car's windows but couldn't see much because the windows had fogged up from sitting in there and talking so long, and I was not about to wipe them with my bare hands because my boyfriend would have a fit over fingerprints being on his car, his baby. Jay said ignore it, so we did, and she went back to talking, and again there was another slight rock of the car. We both smiled at one another knowingly, and Jay kept talking. But then the car was shook very forcefully. This time we laughed out loud, and I yelled out to the guys that it wasn't going to work, another forceful shake of the car, and again I yelled out that they might well stop, it was not working. Jay chimed in and said, "Nope, not going to work." Still no answer from the guys. I yelled their names and no reply. Jay and I were still smiling when the car was shook again, but this time from the front, and this time it was downright violent. We strained to see out of the windshield, but couldn't see anything. I yelled for them to cut it out and come on, and still no answer. Now my smile was disappearing along with Jay's, and I was starting to get a little worried. Again, a violent shake, and I screamed, "Stop it, you're scaring us." Nothing. I cut the radio all the way down, also whispering, "Guys." Then I heard it, a low, guttural, deep, sinister growl. You know, that type of growl that resonates in your chest and sends cold chills up and down your spine. The hair on the nape of my neck was standing on end, and I don't know how to explain it, but it was no ordinary growl. It sounded canine-like, but there was something more troubling about it. It was ominous and disturbing, and to this day I cannot put my finger on it. What was that? I looked back at Jay, and it looked like all the blood had drained from her face. Then an eerie screeching of what sounded like fingernails running from the front left quarter panel on the driver's side all the way down to the door handle. My eyes followed the slow, terrible sound in utter dismay, and I knew at that point that this was definitely not my boyfriend because he would never do that or allow that to be done to his car. Then it stopped. Jay and I froze. I don't think I had even taken a breath as all this unfolded, but then I watched in horror as I heard someone or something trying to lift that door handle. At that point, I scrambled to jump the short distance across the driver's seat and lock the door. This put my head and eyes maybe a half an inch from the glass, and thank God it was steamy, because I just knew something or someone was on the other side watching me. I could feel their eyes boring into me, causing the hair on the back of my neck to continue to stand on end. It was truly unnerving. I felt a type of fear that I had never felt before, and I pray I never feel it again. It was primal. A fear that tells you that your life is truly in danger. A fear where you feel like your heart is literally going to stop beating because it's beating so fast that it hurts. You feel sick, dizzy, and a clammy cold sweat envelops you, leaving you with goose flesh all over your body. I was literally frozen with fear as I looked out those foggy windows. I was so close that my breath was creating more steam on it, and although I was terrified, part of me wanted to see out, I think, because the logical part of my brain was telling me that I was overreacting and that it was nothing more than a terrible prank the guys were playing, or at worst, a large, angry dog. I even wondered if a wild hog or had somehow gotten down out of the mountains and into our area, as they can be quite large and make some awful sounds. Maybe I had even imagined the door handle lifting. I slowly reached with a shaking hand and wiped a little bit of the fog from the window, and to my ultimate dismay, I saw what looked like a large, dark canine-type muzzle, wet nose pressed against the glass, snorting out another low and horrible growl. The breath from this beast created its own steam on the outside of the window, and then it looked like it had risen up. Yeah, the frickin' thing stood on 2 feet. Reeling from terror, I slammed myself back into my own seat as Jay screamed, "What is that?" My mind was racing. Did I just see a dog stand? And that looked like the muzzle of a German Shepherd or wolf, but it was huge and longer, more narrow at the end. I don't know, something was not right. No, surely not. Jay repeated herself, snapping me back into reality, but before I could answer her, which I didn't know how to, the entire car began shaking, like this thing was standing there, shaking it by gripping the top of the car near the upper part of the window and the roof. Jay began crying and screaming, which seemed to make this monster even madder, and it shook it even harder, growling more ferociously. I was screaming to Jay to hush, be quiet, because she was only making matters worse. Of course, she was not listening. I slid down into the passenger side floorboard and was whispering to Jay to get down on the same position I was, but she crumbled up into a fetal position in the back seat, where she was sobbing. I truly thought, dear God, we are going to die, and I was just waiting for this thing to come crashing through the window at any moment. I was hushing Jay this whole time, and she did seem to attempt to calm down. Suddenly the car quit shaking, and the growling stopped. We knew the creature was still standing there. I knew it was listening for us, and I very quietly urged Jay to calm down some more, lying to her, saying that it was going to be all right, and to see the shaking had stopped. Somehow, Jay got her breath under control and quit sobbing. It seemed like the silence was deafening and much worse than the shaking and growling had been. After what seemed like forever, we heard the creature move away. Taking a couple steps back from the car, you could hear it sniffing around the car windowsill, though. And I am sure that into the night air. We couldn't really see it, just its outline of it, as it moved on 2 legs around the back of the car, sniffing away the entire time. It was incredibly tall, very wide by its silhouette. I'm guessing over 8 feet tall. The gravel was crackling and popping from the weight of this creature as it straightened up and moved along the car. It was downright evil and weird. Then we heard it collapse to all fours with a heavy thud. Now I know the popping and crackling was probably from it standing upright, but at the time I thought it was the sound of the gravel beneath its foot. It was obviously that the thing was very heavy, and I'd guess 600 to 700 pounds, maybe even more, considering muscle weighs more than fat, and I believe people underestimate their weight always. Thankfully, Jay was still being quiet. Why I had remained so calm was beyond me. Maybe it was because I felt like I had no other choice, because Jay was falling apart. Maybe because my dad had raised me up to be so rough and tough. I was the only child, and although I was pretty spoiled by folks, I was also a hardcore tomboy from being raised on the farm and seeing animals die and on a regular basis. I don't know how I kept my wits about me during this, but I did, somehow. I heard the creature quit sniffing, and it sounded like it was messing with the trunk lock. I was thinking, oh my God, it's trying to still get in here. And at that moment, I remember my door was still unlocked. So with that unsteady hand, I reached up, took a deep breath, and slowly pushed the lock down, hoping the thing wouldn't hear it. But as soon as that lock engaged, that locking mechanism made what sounded like the loudest clicking noise ever, and suddenly that creature quit fiddling with the trunk, paused just long enough for me to whisper, "Oh my God," then ran around to my side of the car. and was now right outside of my door. I could hear it sniffing at the handle. I truly thought my heart was going to beat out of my chest, and I thought I was going to get physically ill. I sunk lower into the passenger side floorboard, and tears filled my eyes. I was absolutely terrified. So terrified that to this day it's beyond my ability to describe just how extremely terrified I was at the time. All I could do was pray that the thing wouldn't bust through the window, yet that irrational voice inside my head was going, "You know it's going to bust in here any moment, don't you?" Suddenly the sniffing quit again, and it was dead silence. What's it doing now, I thought, and, like to answer me, I felt a hard slam on the car door, and then I felt the door handle lift. I was already in a very awkward position, but I turned my upper body around so I could grab the inside handle with both hands just in case it somehow did get it open. I knew that by the size of this thing, I was not going to stand a chance in a tug-of-war over the door, but I sure was not going to go down without a fight. Jill started crying again, and I screamed out, "Shut up!" I'm pretty sure the creature heard me, and it seemed to let go of the handle. This thing started growling, that sinister growl again, and then it went back to lifting the door handle, but this time it was jerking it hard enough to shake the car. I was gripping the handle so tight that my knuckles were turning white and my hands were starting to hurt. But I didn't care. I was not letting go. Jill began to panic. She cried out, "Go away." I lost it at that point and screamed, "Just stop, go away." I just kept screaming this over and over. By now, I was crying hysterically as well. And unbelievably, it suddenly just stopped. No shaking, no lifting, no growling. Just the sound of us breathing and sobbing. A minute passed, and Jay asked me if it was gone. I didn't hear it leave, but we'd been crying and yelling, and although I definitely did not want to, I knew I was going to have a look out that window. Keeping one hand on the door handle, I scooted up just far enough to reach the glass, but still keep the majority of myself in the floorboard hidden, and using the other hand, which had practically fallen asleep from the numbing pain of gripping the handle so tight, I managed to swipe a little space of fog from the glass. Slowly, with eyes wide from fear, I peeked my head just high enough to look out that little piece I had made, and to my horror, as my heart sank and my blood ran cold, I now found myself looking into two of the most deadly eyes I had ever seen. Its eyes were this freakish ember yellow, and it was glaring right back at me. It began this ominous deep growl, obviously angry that it couldn't get to me, and this frickin' thing was a lot larger than I had estimated. It was enormous. Its head was the size of a grizzly's. In fact, I'd bet it was a little larger. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. My eyes were looking right at it, but my brain just could not fathom the message my eyes were sending it. This was a monster, a real and true creature of the night, something I had overheard about in hushed stories the elders would tell, something horror stories and legends are made of, but it was supposed to be exactly that, a legend, a myth, something that was not real, something made up, fiction. And then I thought, dear God in heaven, these things do exist. And at that one moment, everything I thought about this world was changed forever. Everything I thought I knew changed. Everything I believed and didn't believe changed. Along with its monstrous head were tall pointed ears with long tufts of hair coming from the tip. And inside the ears, its coat looked longer than a German shepherd's, but just as coarse. It had tiny frays of white around its eyes and the snout, like it was just beginning to age, maybe. It had a few scars, one above its right eye and across its snout. From fighting, perhaps, or from killing. Then it just had to go and sneer at me. Unfortunately, I caught a glimpse of its huge teeth. My stupid mind couldn't help but interject. All the better to eat you with, I guess my mind way of trying to cope with the situation. It was looking very, very oversized wolf, but there was also something non-wolf-like about it. Something unnatural, something dangerous and very predatory. I knew I was looking at a true predator, an apex predator, the top of the food chain, an alpha predator. The real natural-born killer, and my mind reeled as it screamed, "It's werewolf, you idiot. You're looking at a werewolf." Suddenly, it jerked its head down the road looking in the direction that my boyfriend would be coming from any minute. I suddenly realized our boyfriends would be back, and they were going to be outside with this monster. I began to feel sick and started to cry again because I had no idea how to warn them, and I just knew this thing was going to kill them, and we were going to have to witness the savage slaying. Still looking down the road, the creature lifted its snout into the air and began sniffing, its ears twitching in the same direction of its sniffing, and then it quickly snapped its head back in my direction, gave me one final terrorizing look, and charged off on all fours in the opposite direction of where our boyfriends would be coming from. And boy, could it move. It was lightning fast. Moments later, we saw 2 flashlight beams and heard the guys laughing and talking, still paralyzed in fear. Neither Jay or I moved. Tears just ran down our cheeks. The guys had to tap on the glass of the windows to say, "Open up," before I budged. Once in, I quickly locked my door and leapt over my boyfriend and locked his. My boyfriend was like, "What's wrong with you?" I could hear Jay's boyfriend asking her why she was crying. Then my boyfriend looked at me and said, "You're crying too? What happened?" Before we could answer, we all heard this terrifying howl cut through the night like a razor. It was long, almost sad, but I knew the creature making that howl was not sad, perhaps mad that it didn't get its midnight snack. Jill and I screamed for my boyfriend, "Go!" He looked at me and dared to say, "Not before you tell me what happened." Jay and I were both crying harder and nervously looking around. Jay whined for her boyfriend, and she wanted to leave, but I reached over, grabbed the keys and the ignition, and cranked the stupid car myself, screaming at the top of my lungs, "We have to go." Shocked, but with little reluctance, my boyfriend cranked the car up, and we sped away from the area where this creature had just been. The guys were really mad that we wanted to go home immediately, and I don't think they understood what either of us was trying to tell them until later on. Of course, we were both talking frantically, telling what seemed like an irrational story. I'm sure we were not making any sense. But the next day when my boyfriend came by, there in the dust that covered his car from the dirt roads were very large prints on the roof, windows, and wheel well of the car. And all down the driver's side from the front quarter panel door were deep claw marks. My friends and I never spoke of the incident again, and over time and years slowly lost touch, but as I stated earlier, that incident changed me forever, and to this day I have trouble sleeping and will turn on every light in the house if I hear something or I'm by myself. And I get an overwhelming feeling of fear. Sometimes I have to take sleeping pills to sleep and anxiety medicine for panic attacks. I watch my surroundings, especially at night. And I don't hunt or camp alone. I don't camp often at all. I'm very cautious, and I always keep big dogs, Rotties. In fact, this is the first time I haven't had a dog in many years, but I plan on changing that soon. I always carry a sidearm and have one close by, although I doubt a gun could stop what I saw that night if it truly wanted you. But I'd rather have it than not. My ex-husband, who was one of the very few people I trusted, even had a silver bullet made for me. No, I don't believe what I encountered was the mythical werewolf of Hollywood, so no, I don't think silver would have killed it, but it did make me feel better to know my ex did believe me. I've always been accused of being paranoid and afraid of the dark, and I guess I am. I tell people I'm not afraid of the dark, but I'm afraid of what's in the dark. And I have good reason to be. I don't isolate myself by any means, but I do things I consider stupid. Either walk down a desolate road at night alone or hear strange noises and grab a gun to investigate. And for years, I tried to suppress it and pretend it didn't really happen. But I think it made things worse. When I finally got old enough to finally say, okay, this really did happen, and it's okay to admit it and believe it, I started feeling a little better. Although, I still feel very alone in the matter. Now, unfortunately, this isn't something you can share with other people, even people very close to you usually. Most people are going to laugh and ridicule you, saying you imagined it or it was some type of animal, and you were so young and scared that you misidentified it. Trust me when I tell you there is no way I misidentified this thing. So, hearing others say it's true, and they've seen it, helps tremendously. What I still truly don't understand is, why didn't the creature break the glass that night? It was intelligent enough to lift the car handle and fiddle with the trunk, but it didn't break the glass. I've asked myself that question 100 times. And why did it just run away like that? It could have had us all for a midnight snack. Well, now you have heard my experience, and whether you believe it or not, it's up to you. Unfortunately for me, I have no choice to believe it and deal with it in some way, shape, or form every day for the rest of my life. The Dogman is part of my reality, whether I like it or not.
I really feel for those two girls in that car being trapped in a vehicle with a large Dogman running around, and then your loved ones outside, not knowing what to do, wondering, am I going to see them again? Is this thing going to get them and then me? Just terrifying. I hope you all enjoyed this early morning, middle of the night bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you, and I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that keeps this channel growing and going, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free, just simply treated with the respect we all deserve. Everyone, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real, they are out there, and they are dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless.